Here's what I'm going to try to cover today. Terminology. I'm going to go through this fast on terminology, but I think there's just some language that there may be people in the room that go, I hear this, but I have no idea what it means, and I kind of don't want to normally ask about it because I'm afraid it may seem to the people I'm asking that I don't know what I'm doing, and that is just untrue. I'm fortunate to have, again, over 20 people around me in technology. I get to go ask dumb questions all the time, and they can't do anything about it because I own the company. And I say that totally in jest. I have such a great relationship with them that I have no problem going, I do not know what this means. I looked up on the web and I still don't know, and have them explain it to me. And they do this stuff all day long. So I have an advantage there. Happy to answer any questions about terminology or just some basic stuff. How it's evolved in our industry from my perspective, and I've been doing it for 20 years, I think I've got a good perspective on it. Companies in the industry, again, not an infomercial for us, throw up some slides with other names. I may even say if there's a name up here, or if there's not a name up here that y'all are aware of, I'd love to get it so other people in the audience hear it too. And these are competitors of ours in terms of our management system. That is okay. I'm trying to make, this is for you all, not for me. So let's try to get everybody knowing who else is out there. Benefits of technology. If you're sitting in this room, you probably are like, yep, there's some benefits. I'll tell you what I feel like the benefits are of using it. Things to consider. We've done this a lot, and we made a lot of mistakes. So I'm happy to talk through the mistakes that we've made to help shortcut it for you. Partnerships. Opportunities, not opportunities with us, opportunities of what's happening in technology in our industry. If we get to this point, and we're moving pretty quick, happy to talk about what's coming next, in my eyes. And then see if people have questions about things that they're thinking about. Do I think they're viable or think they're coming? That's code. I'm pretty good at technology. I'll pat myself on the back. I've never written a line of code, and I couldn't do it if you handed me a computer right now. Never done it. As much as I want to, I've never done it. Because the people we're fortunate enough to have work with us are way better at it than me. But if you're meeting with someone talking about technology and they start talking about code, that's what it is. It looks like a bunch of gibberish to me. Software, combination of all that code, help you run your business. Help you do an application, whatever it may be. Front end, something I hear our people talk about all the time. Front end and back end. Front end, if you think about front end, and I'm going to go through this quick, so please ask a question. Front end is usually the customer-facing type thing or the user-facing. What colors are on there? And I have a front-end developer that does nothing but front-end stuff. If you want to make him mad and really get under his skin, which I never do because he's very valuable and I don't want him to leave, so I treat him very well. But if you ever want to do that, you say, oh, you're the guy that makes it look pretty. And that will tick him off. But he's the one that makes, he and another person that does this, are the ones that make sure when you go to a website, it's intuitive. It should be able to walk you through it pretty quickly. You shouldn't have to sit there for 5 minutes to figure out what in the world's going on. Color is an important part, size, font, and all that good stuff. Back end tends to be the operational stuff. Back end is the muscle, in my opinion. It's the logic behind it. It's usually the writing of the hard code to make this go to this and this do this. The front end is the part that says, oh, the user can do that and not have to sit here and think about it for 30 minutes and have all kinds of problems. Database is where all your data. This is how I think about a database real quick, or a SQL database. If you hear that, just think about it. I think about it as a fancy Excel spreadsheet or a Google Docs spreadsheet. That's how I think about a database. It's where all your data is sitting. And if you build 10 by 12 barns, there's a cell in my mind, if anybody knows much about Excel, there's a cell sitting there that says 10, there's one sitting there that says 12, and there's one sitting there that says barn. And what it allows you to do when you have all those buildings is to go, I need to know how many 10 by 12 barns I have. And you can run out and go, this is how many they have. How much did it cost? And there's just, in my head, as a very simplistic way to think about it, it's just a bunch of Excel spreadsheets tacked together. It's way more complicated than that, but I don't need to know more than that right there. And probably most of everyone in this room, that's about all you need to really understand about it. It tells you the relationship of that information, which is what you're mainly focused on. Languages. I hear our guys talk about languages all the time. Those are just some names. It is just the way they develop, those developers, it's the language that they program in. And there's some more popular than others, and it changes over time as new technology comes out. I almost didn't put that up there. It's one of those things, so if someone says, well, I program in this language, you don't feel like an idiot because you're like, I don't know what in the hell that means. That's what it means. It's what they're programming in. But to tell you the truth, I would not, and I do this all the time, I would not be able to look at it and go, well, that's a terrible language to program in. Why do you program in that? Here's all the negatives to it. I couldn't do that, and probably no one in here can either. But you at least need to know sort of what does that mean. User interface, this thing I said, make it look pretty. What is that user interface that the user, consumer is using? User experience, web-based, cloud-based computing. It used to be, and there's a lot of businesses that still do this, they're running it off of, say, Excel or a PDF in an application. And when I get ready to update it, I got to go to every computer and update every computer. The way I think about it is this just solves that problem. It sticks it somewhere so all of them are tied together. And I don't have to go around and update every single computer. Again, a lot more than that. It sounds real complicated. It's really simple. And if you're not getting into an environment where all your locations, all your computers are linked, you're going to end up with problems. You no longer can run the software, the programs, and not have things linked. You have to eventually move to that. See, I feel like I left CRM and ERP. I didn't have up there. Customer relationship management software. I'm not saying I'm skeptical of those. I think they are often overpromised for what they will do. But CRM, if you hear those, relationship with the customers, capturing all the customer information, doing a bunch. ERP is another one that gets way overused in my opinion. Enterprise Resource Planning, I believe is what it stands for. And for our industry, a lot of people are looking at that because they're looking for pick tickets, basically. I'm building sheds. I really need something to help me go, this is how much that shed costs. This is my materials I need. This is, as I release those materials to build that shed, how much do I have sitting on the yard? How much do I need to order? For our industry, it should not be very hard to do. There's just nobody really done it well yet that I've seen. I think there's several people, and I'll name some that are working on it. I have yet to see anybody or heard about anybody that goes, oh, I've got a system and it's working great. When we manufactured back in the day, we did it through Excel. It was painful. It was not a lot of fun. There should be a better way out there now. But if you hear somebody talking about an ERP, that's what it means. How has it evolved? And then I'll get in the meat of stuff. When we started, the best technology was the three-part NCR. If you don't know what that is, that's that right there. The dealers would fill it out, tear off a piece, hand the white copy to the customer, take the yellow copy and stick it in their file. And at that time, they'd mail us the pink copy usually. That was as good as it got. Everybody had a copy. Hooray. And you got ready to sign up a dealer, you went around and gave them a big stack of three-part NCRs with your lease and all your stuff. Faxing came along. It was there. A lot of our dealers at those back in 2003, 4, and 5 didn't have fax machines. They had them. They were horrible. Couldn't fax a legal size paper. And if you did get it, you almost, even if you could read their handwriting, you could not read the fax copy. But if you could get people to actually use a decent fax machine, it was a game changer because you could get it the same day versus them mailing it to you. In my opinion, and I'm pretty confident in this, the rent-to-own companies in the shed industry were the first ones, us, BLI, and then others have done it, were the first ones to really do online ordering or an online process. So from an evolution, went three-part, kind of went fax. Then you got these online orders by the RTO companies. So we had to have it because we couldn't read the handwriting most of the time. And we were constantly calling back to the dealer to say, I can't read this address. You forgot the phone number. The same things you deal with as a dealer or a manufacturer if you have sales lots or dealers. we were dealing with legal contracts and legal obligations of customers. And so it was really important that we had them right. And the handwriting stuff was a mess. We'll talk about barriers to implementing technology. Let's see, what's my next one? Let me talk about the top one real quick, because it's a good story. When we started doing online software, online application, most every dealer said they wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted to keep their 3-part little NCR. The few that we got to do it loved it. My salespeople at the time, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, said, this is never going to work. We're never going to get anybody to convert. They're complaining. And about a year in, as a company, we dictated, we will no longer use 3-part NCR. We can't do this. We will not take handwritten one. You have to use online. We're mandating it. And my salespeople, I thought, were going to quit and said, all of our dealers are going to leave us. Every single one of them are going to leave us. I said, we don't have a choice. We can't continue to grow with all the back and forth we're having with dealers over just simple things. Like, this solves every problem that we're having in communication. We ended up buying over 100 iPads and giving them to dealers because they didn't have a computer. They couldn't do it. So we went out and bought iPads and handed it to them. Said, set it up, here you go. Within a few months of implementing that, I don't believe we lost more than maybe one dealer out of 60 or 70, 80 at the time. More than that at that time. And the response a few months after that was overwhelmingly, how in the world could we have not done this sooner? This is great. Now, we weren't doing all this complex stuff. This was simply typing in a customer's name, typing in their address, typing in those things. The point is, most people do not like change. Most people are very comfortable how they're doing it. And most people way underestimate what's called friction, the back and forth of errors. Oh, I can't read your handwriting. My dealer support person has to call the dealer. The dealer's got to stop what they're doing, pick up the phone, give them the new phone number. They've got to hang it up. That transaction, as it happens multiple times, messes everybody up, and it costs the company a ton of money. But it happens in small increments, and so most people don't value the amount of that time. So they're like, why are we doing this? This is not a big deal. You take all that time away, and they realize now they're not having to deal with that. And they're, holy crap, this is so much easier. Why didn't we do this before? Well, now they're used to using something like a tablet at that point. It's one of the rare times in our company that I've ever went, we have to do this. We won't take it any other way. And it scared the crap out of me. But I knew we had to do it. And time again, as we've done those things, I will tell you, if you have conviction that you're doing the right thing, do not lose that conviction when you're using technology, because that will absolutely be the death knell of what you're doing. Because people will not adopt what you're talking about. And if they don't fully engage and adopt it and you don't mandate it, it will never work. And we'll talk a little bit about my passion for that in a few minutes. RTO companies do that. We've seen a lot more now PDF, Google Docs, Excel-based order forms. We think the dealers finally were like, okay, we've got our arms around this a little bit. We've seen the RTO companies do it. Now, we had over 100 iPads out to dealers. We don't have a single one out there anymore. Everybody has a computer. But when we started doing ours, half our dealers, if not more, didn't have a computer sitting in their location. Well, now they all have it. So now the manufacturers and the dealers that we see, most everybody is going to something PDF, Google Docs. Configurators have then started coming out in the last few years. We'll probably talk about configurators in a few minutes. Now we've seen dealer management systems come out. So since 2003 to now, we are finally seeing a way for people to actually manage their business versus just collect the customer name and some very basic rudimentary ways of it not being handled. This is the first time, in my opinion, in the last 12 months that there's finally becoming a systematic approach for dealers and manufacturers to run their business. And if you think about me being in it for 20 years and it's just happening, and you think about all the stuff that's happening in the world, we're just scratching the surface. The one thing I left off of here I wish I put on that I think is newer coming than the dealer management system is the ERP or the manufacturing side, picking and costing. You know, how do I relieve my raw goods inventory into a shed? How do I know the cost of that without guessing? How do I know when to reorder raw goods? From my perspective of what I'm seeing, that's just beginning. This is still real new. Even we are pretty good at it because we're using a platform we've been doing for 10 or 12 years. But now that we've turned to focus, we're still learning some things. A lot of the other companies that are out there I know are learning a lot. And the ERP manufacturing side is just beginning. But I think we're going to see them evolve really fast. Because before, if I walked in and tried to say this, most manufacturers and dealers would have been like, that sounds great, Phil, but I'm really busy, really don't care. Now there is a demand for it as people are trying to grow their businesses, now that there are computers at all the locations. So there's a reason this has taken a while, but we're starting to see it move pretty quick, and we're starting to see the demand for people, now that they've started seeing their information, wanting to have more access to that information. Companies in the industry. As I said, this is not our info. These are a bunch of the companies we're seeing. I threw TikTok up there just because I am not a TikToker. I don't have a TikTok account. I do read a lot about business and technology, and I'm seeing more and more about how the younger generation will say is using that as an emerging trend for selling and advertising. I don't have enough experience. If you ask me one or two questions, I couldn't answer them. But I put it up there because it is emerging. Large national, international companies are doing it, which means it will trickle down to all of us that have smaller and mid-sized businesses eventually if we want to use it. It's no different than Facebook Marketplace and Instagram and some of the others. So those are some of the companies we see up there. Shed Suite, a direct competitor on our dealer management system, is up there. Shed Hub, new innovation in trying to sell sheds. Shed App. So these are some of the names that we see. And we'll come back to this, and I'm going to ask you all a question. Here's how I'm organizing them. I got to get fast. Here's how I'm organizing them. And the reason I'm doing this is I had a conversation with a competitor of ours, quasi-competitor, last night. And there's a big problem in our industry right now because it's evolving so fast of who does what. Where do you play? What will one system do that the other system doesn't do? Where is there overlap? If there's going to be overlap, which one works with the others? If I'm a user, I need to know that stuff. When I think sales, I think customer information, order entry, CRM, reaching out to prospective customers. But right now in our industry, I don't even think about reaching out to prospective customers. I think about just managing them, managing my sales, front-end sales process. Inventory management is how I think about it next. How do I manage my inventory? Where it is, what I got to build, what is it costing me? Order processing, probably should have used another name than order processing. I think about, in transportation, even smaller, I think about order processing as how do I link all this together? So I got sales, I got inventory, I got customer information, I got this. Order processing to me is how do I begin to integrate that into a systematic approach to capture all that data. Transportation is the one, if you're not in our industry or you're new to our industry, you will undervalue logistics and transportation in our industry dramatically. It is hugely important. It is the expense that kills you over time, but never shows up until you get that big building to rebuild a Cummins engine or buy a new truck. But it's hard to manage your cost. No one, We're doing some stuff in there. Some of the other companies are, but there's not as many seem to be going to that. And then you kind of got accounting on the back end, and there's like two companies, generally speaking. Sage, which is the old Peach. They bought Peachtree, which is one of the other competitors to QuickBooks, and QuickBooks. My point of all this is you can see where it is. These are kind of how they're bucketing, and a lot of people are playing across the spectrum in different little parts. But I can't sit here, and I should be able to do this, but we can't yet, and draw you a board and go, here's where this company does, and they stop. And if you really want to integrate your technologies, these are the ones to do this, these are the ones to do that, and these are the ones to do the rest of it. Or here's one platform. We're not there yet. But we've got to get there, and I think there's going to be a lot of movement next year in all of us, and I say us not on a rent-to-own side, on the technology side, talking to go, we're causing a whole lot of confusion to the users. We've got to better define what we're trying to do to them and what we do and don't do so that they can make some good decisions. But I think everybody on the technology side in our industry are still trying to sort of figure that out. Where do we play? Where do we not want to be? Where are the problems that companies aren't solving? Is there a company name that just pops in, one or two or three company names that pop in that aren't on my list that anyone in here is using? Yep, thank you. I know about them. And anything else? 3D Structure app, and I meant to have them on here. We kind of caught it at the end, and I thought we were going to be using, I didn't think we were going to get to use our own computer, so I didn't think I had time to go edit anything. So thank you for that. Anybody else have a name? Because this, again, so everybody else has it. I saw some people taking pictures. Take all the pictures you want, but if we need to, we'll publish this, hand it out, do whatever we need to do. This is not proprietary. This is, again, for y'all. Benefits. Access to information. One of the smartest people in our industry that I know has about 15, 20 locations, and they've been doing this selling sheds for a long time. Intellectually, one of the smartest people I know. Definitely, I just know. Just a very smart person. And 3 years ago, I sat with them, and I've gotten to know them over the last few years, and finally kind of broke the barrier of, okay, I'm a vendor trying to sell you something, and we finally just had a good conversation. And the question I said to this person was like, how's your business doing? Well, we're doing pretty good this year. I said, well, how are you, are you up? Intellectually very smart. Are you up 5%, 10%, 15%? Well, we're up pretty good. That kind of caught me off guard. This is knowing this person's background, a very detail-oriented person like I am, I figured, yeah, we're up 12.5%. We're up 8.5%. I figured a solid number, and I'm getting kind of good. And I thought about it, I said, can you track your location profitability, like each location, how they're doing profit-wise, and how they're doing to prior 1 or 2 years, or how they're doing this year versus prior year? Kinda. Okay, yeah, it's really smart. What do you mean? So finally, the person goes, let me show you something. And we get up, we walk around behind their desk, opens up a door, we step into a closet, and there's a bookshelf of binders. And this person goes, there are all my financial statements right there, by location. And I said, wow. So you've got it all, but you don't have time to go pull this location, this year's profitability versus last year. And the person goes, nope, we got it all, but it's sitting in all those binders. And I was dumbstruck. As a finance person who runs a finance company, I could sleep at night doing that. But again, I couldn't do what this person's done in building their business because I'm not a salesperson. I'm a finance kind of that type of person. Having access to your information of everything we're going to talk about to me is the most important, by far. It's got to be accurate, so it gives you accuracy. If you have a good system, you don't have handwritten stuff. If you have paper, it's not going to help you. Accuracy of that information is extremely important. You're getting it faster. You can make faster decisions. Doesn't mean you have to make faster decisions. The faster I usually make a decision, the more I usually regret making that decision, often. But I've had the data for a long time. I've been watching it. So now when I'm ready, I can make it because I've got it. So it gives you the ability to make those decisions at the point with more confidence and faster, although you don't always have to. Standardization. Everybody hates standardization. Everybody has their own order form and wants their order form to look just like the one they printed 20 years ago and have all the handwriting that they've decided or the writing that they needed. Using a lot of technology will force you into standardization whether you like it or not. You have to choose when to use it and when not to. When are you willing to bend? And when do you have something that's really so precious to you that you feel so passionately that you need something more customized? Customization is hard when you're rolling around platforms and using technology. It lowers your training costs, lowers your employee costs. Ability to audit sounds awful accounting. Salesperson calls in and says, why can't I get my orders to the manufacturing plant? The dealer does. And the manufacturer goes, we're building them as fast as you can. I ordered these buildings 5 weeks ago. Let's see about that. Nope, you ordered them last week. Technology gives you the ability. One of the first things we implemented when we were manufacturing and had dealers was logging dealer complaints about inventory on the lot. Because I would show up at a lot and the dealer would go, Phil, I've called your people like 5 times. There's nail holes in this wall. They missed a stud, and we used treated T111, and you could close the door, and you could see all the nail holes where they missed the stud and nailed it, and then pulled the nails out and didn't caulk it. Well, after you hear that a while, you start getting really mad at your service people because nobody's fixing this stuff. So you put in a system like that to hold your service people accountable. Unfortunately, what you find out is the dealer's never called anybody. I just happen to be the one to show up on the lot, and he says, I've called people 100 times, and nobody ever comes out and fixes it. You put in a system and you start logging that, you can see when they called, who fixed it, when they fixed it. You now have some real data to make your dealer actually happier. Because as soon as they find out you know that, they don't exaggerate. And I'm not beating up on a dealer. We all do it. And now you've got that is a real life situation of one of the systems we built that we use to this day. Because we would have complaints in manufacturing that we never could validate. And once we put that in place and you had the data, it was amazing how much those complaints went down. And everybody pretty much just took care of the work. So the ability to go back and audit and see when did someone call, who did they call, what was the log, it is not hard to do. It's just having that system in place. And once you've done those things a few times, it's amazing how much they fix themselves. And you never have to go back and really look at it again. Man, things to consider when implementing. This is what I said earlier. It has to come from the owner. It has to come from the person who's most passionate about it. If you delegate it, it will likely not happen unless you have a very, very strong personality in your organization that has a lot of authority, either by title or by history with the company or expertise. It has to have momentum. You have to understand your process. If you don't understand your process and you're trying to implement it, it'll never work. You have to set very clear priorities. I said automate the manual processes here. I probably shouldn't have put that. I should have put automate repetitive processes. Would have been a much better way to say that. If there's something someone's doing as you're watching over and over and over again in your business, whether it's creating a report, whether it's answering of calls, whatever it may be, if you can, in my opinion, focus on those first, and I say this and I mean it, it is not with the intent of going, wait, I get to fire you. I can automate all your work and get rid of you. If I'm going to fire you, I should have fired you already. What I want to do is take the processes that you're doing that really are not value added, that are not knowledge based, it's just repetitive process. I want to take them away off of you so you don't have to do that and let you go add a lot more value, hopefully by whatever skill set you have. Customer service, manufacturing, whatever it may be. I want to let you go do that and not this continually repetitive process. That's the first place I look in our organization every time when we do things. How can we get rid of that? I have a situation right now with someone we're working with where I won't say this is true, I'll say this is my feeling is they're allowing their staff to create roadblocks because some of the staff members have been doing it the same way for a long time and they like the way they're doing it. And the standardization that they're having to adjust to is a little different. The outcome's the same, but the process is a little different. And their staff is throwing up all kinds of problems that aren't really problems when you dig in. And so you have to be very careful in not allowing, you have to listen, you have to be attentive to your staff, and you have to listen to people doing the work because they know it the best, but you also have to be able to cut through when they're just causing some roadblocks so they don't really want to change. And that's where it has to come from the owner, where sometimes you just got to step in and say, this is the direction we're going. And if you don't do that, it will not work. I've done this for 20 years, and it will, when I don't do that, and our organization don't really have to do it anymore. We all have good enough teams, but early on, it would not get done because it was a lot easier for everybody being busy to just do it the way they've been doing it. You will most likely run two systems, your old way, as manual as it may be, and the new way. And that's probably not a bad idea for a little while. But if you're not careful, you'll do it way too long, and it'll seem like your new system's causing you all kinds of problems. And it's not. It's the fact that your people are trying to do two systems. At some point, you've got to rip the Band-Aid off. If you do it too soon, you can kind of regret it. Because you're like, crap, I haven't fully vetted out whatever new technology I'm using, whether it's a configurator, whether it's a dealer management system, whether it's transportation. But if you let it go too long, it causes inefficiencies. It'll begin to frustrate a lot of people. And of course, what are they going to do? Blame the new technology, not the old technology. Because that's what they're comfortable with. Partnerships. I got asked this last night. I got asked it last night, but I got asked a couple weeks ago. Bill, how many lawsuits have y'all been, business-to-business lawsuits have y'all been in 20 years? And I said, we've been in 5, maybe 5, 6, 7, not 7, 4 or 5, and I wouldn't call them lawsuits, I would call them criminal prosecutions because someone literally just stole stuff from us and we felt so passionate that we had to go after them. And he said, that's not what I mean. I mean, how many business lawsuits you've been in? I said, I've never been in a business lawsuit in 20 years. So I haven't. And you could tell by the look on their face, they thought I was lying. And I said, I'm just telling you. I haven't been in a lawsuit in 20 years. Haven't found one where it was so egregious that it would be better to go through a whole lawsuit than to find a way out. And in most cases, we're both going to lose. But I'm also pretty good about when I get ready to do a partnership, do I understand who I'm getting in bed with, and do I want to make sure they understand who they're getting in bed with, and what are our expectations, and then I want it in writing a little bit. It doesn't have to be some fancy long legal document, but I want to make sure we both understand what's in writing. Because now, 5 years from now, when we both have different memories, not through ill intent, we just remember things differently, we can go back to something and go, you know what, 5 years ago, this is what we agreed to. And we both understood it. That solves a whole lot of problems. When you do technology, whether you're doing a configurator with Idea Room, whether you're using a DMS with us or Shed Suite, whether you're doing Shed Hub, whatever you're doing, you're getting into a partnership. And you need to not only require them to explain what they're doing, you need to make sure that you explain to them what you're trying to do. You have to clearly define what you're trying to accomplish. You have to ask, do they know what they're doing in this industry? It does not mean if they're new to the industry, they don't know what they're doing. It does not. Richard Mashburn is sitting right here beside me as our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer and comes out of the auto lending industry. And Richard will sit here and tell you, and I have such confidence in him that I'm willing to tell a story in front of everybody that he'll go, oh yeah, that's true, but it's not like the greatest success story he's ever had. He came in and I got to know Richard, and I was very specific. I wanted somebody out of the auto industry if at all possible, because I think over time our industry will continue to evolve more similar to how the auto retail industry has evolved. But everybody comes in our industry with preconceived notions. And you darn well better learn our industry really well and understand it before you follow through on those preconceived notions. And Richard will tell you, he came in just like that with preconceived notions, and I let him go out and trip up all over himself. Because he's smart enough that if I sat there and told him everything he said was wrong, which not everything, but some of the stuff he said wasn't going to work, he's just going to think, well, that's because you won't let me go do it. So you got to kind of go mess up. If you're new to our industry, you will come into that because this is a very different industry than what most people come out of. So make sure they really understand what you're trying to accomplish and how it works. Sorry, we laugh about it now, but it's because it is such a unique industry. It seems so simple. We're building sheds and selling them. But the dynamics of how the relationships work between finance companies and transportation companies and sheds and manufacturing a shed. Everybody thinks shed manufacturing is easy, and it's a lot harder than you think. And they don't have a clue about trailers. I think I saw a Pine View. I thought I saw a Pine Hill trailer a while ago. They don't understand anything about trailers. They don't understand about wear and tear on trucks. They don't understand. You got to explain it to them. Do they have support staff? Again, does not mean a small company can't be successful. But when you have two developers and one developer quits or gets out sick, 50% of your capacity just went down. I know how painful that is because we didn't always have 20 developers. And when you're moving through projects and you're small and you have one or two developers and one developer goes and does something else, you can't just plug and play. They have to learn that system. Again, doesn't mean not to do business with anybody who has one or two developers. Does not mean that. It means make sure you understand that, and that there may be times when the development that you want to happen or the deployment is taking longer than you think. Make sure you understand on the front end so that you're communicating and you know why that's happening. They need to tell you, just had one of our main developers, or we just had a developer, or we just had one of our training people, or just had so-and-so, and we're a small company, they just left. Most of us are very good. Okay, I know. Thank you. Now I know. When are we going to get back at it? If you don't know that, and you don't understand what that will cause, you will become extremely frustrated. And there'll be a lack of communication. Understand the size of that support staff. Can you talk to references? Does anybody have it deployed, and who can I talk to? Because we all know the user is the one that knows the most about it. And is it proven? How long has it been used, or is it brand new? Again, doesn't mean not to use brand new. You just better know it. Again, setting expectations when you do this is really important, because back to the partnership, it's a partnership. You need to know who you're partnering with. They need to know who they're partnering with. And they need to know expectations. Big opportunities right now. Reporting. I'm a reporting guy, so I put that first. I think if Richard would have done that, he would have put it last. Not because he doesn't think it's important, or I think it's important. It's because for me, it comes from mind. I like to know what's going on, and I use my reporting. I always say, in my opinion, if I can't tell the score, if I can't see my reports to know financially how we're doing, I can't keep score. It's like coming up to somebody that plays sports and says, what's your record? And they go, I don't know what my record is. Like, there's my score right there. So I like to know those things. That needs to get way better in our industry for people to scale, in my opinion. Back to my story about the person, the really intelligent person that I know that opened up the door and said, here's it all in binders. We're starting to see a lot more expanded use with COVID hit, and we're seeing it continue with the online assisted sales. We started a company, what year? 2018, called ShedFinder.com. Made some of our dealers really nervous. Luckily, I think they had a lot of trust in us. We started a company called ShedFinder.com to sell sheds on the internet, mainly our used sheds. The goal was never to do that for 20 years and be the dominant player online. We kept hearing people talk about pre-COVID, everything going online, everything going online. And we couldn't figure it out. So we couldn't build any technology to help our dealers. And nobody else was doing it worth crap. So we started a company, ran it for 18 months, 2 years, and shut it down. And we learned that online sales rarely happen unless they're assisted. One of the biggest learnings we had, and we built technology. All of our technology links got built in 2018 of being able to email electronic signatures and email things and have them log in and sign stuff electronically so they never had to show up. And the reason we did is we just didn't know anything about online sales at the time, and nobody else did either. Biggest thing, ease of implementation. Right now, implementation for those of you doing configurators is not working real well. Standardization's got to come. Texting, I think, is one of the next big things. Online signatures to go paperless is, I think, one of the great opportunities. That there's a technology is there, but getting people to use it. Growing your business does not necessarily mean growing the top line. It is extremely, in my opinion, way more important to grow your bottom line. So when I think about growing my business, it's great to have top line growth. It's way better to have bottom line growth. And the way you get to bottom line growth are a lot of these things. Customer experience in our industry is still bad. Doesn't mean that everybody gives bad customer experience, but if you look at other industries out there right now and what they're doing in terms of the retail customer environment, some won't work with us. Amazon, this industry is not an Amazon type industry. But if you go order from a good company, a large patio furniture stuff, when it finally gets here 6 months later, the scheduling and communication structure is better than anything I've seen in our industry right now. I can schedule my own delivery, my time range through a calendar. I don't have to talk to anybody about it. They send me an email before to confirm it. They send me an email the day before. Somebody texts me the day of. We can do all that. I think that's coming pretty quickly, and it's going to be demanded. More and more people are going to be demanding it. Texting, as I said, I think has become really important. Ease of use and implementation. Right now, I can't even stand here and tell you what pieces of technology do what in our industry. So we have to ease your understanding and ability to implement. It's got to get better. I think that'll happen over the next 12 to 24 months. So more people will adopt. GPS. This is what I'll say about that. I really did that about transportation because I think there's a lot of help at the transportation side. I hear that there's a lot of desire on the transportation side of our businesses to have better technology. As I'm interpreting what I'm saying is they're all scheduling. They're looking for better ways to communicate. When my driver leaves the yard, how can he text a customer and tell him he's on the way? So back to the texting or communication and the automation of some of that communication to to make it a better customer experience and take your payroll costs down so somebody's not having to call all the time. And you can record that through the system, I think is another big thing to improve customer service. This is a big snafu. If anybody knows anybody about RFID, they're about to call me out on this. That's a bar scanner. I picked the wrong picture by mistake. I have a good buddy that owns a pretty big RFID company. So RFID is, you can do them as stickers. They use them in brick industry a ton. It's where I first learned about it, that I thought may end up becoming a relation to our industry. They use them in the brick industry so that the brick company sitting on the yard knows what bricks are there, what bricks are not there by pallet or by bundle. And you don't have to walk up and bar scan it, but it's not like GPS where it's got to have a strong power source, so you can't track it once it leaves the yard. You just know what's on your yard. Everybody keeps talking about trying to do GPS tracking on sheds, and I just haven't found any way to do it because you got to have a power source. It'd be interesting to see if this moves around, if there's a demand for inventory management, however, as companies grow and expand.